Hello and welcome. It is me, Susie Pettit, your certified life and wellness coach, coming at you live right now with a wonderful guest for you today, live from Australia, actually. Denise Duffield-Thomas is the money mentor for the new wave of online entrepreneurs who want to make money and change the world. She helps women charge premium prices, release the fear of money, and create first-class lives. She has been instrumental for me in changing my relationship with money, and I'm so thrilled to bring her to you today. She has written many books. Her books, Lucky Bitch, Get Rich Lucky Bitch, and Chillpreneur, give a fresh and funny roadmap to living a life of abundance without burnout. Her money boot camp has helped over 6,000 students. She calls herself a lazy introvert. She's a Hay House author and an unbusy mother of 3. She owns a rose farm and lives by the beach in sunny Australia. Let's welcome Denise Duffield-Thomas to the Love Your Life show. Well, warriors, I have Denise Duffield-Thomas here. Thank you and welcome to the show, Denise.
Thanks for having me, Susie. I'm so excited. You were just telling me about your connection to Australia, which is very exciting.
It is very exciting, and I wanted to, for people who've not heard of you, they will read about you all on the show notes, but if they haven't heard of you, how did you get into working with women and money mindset? Have you always been this wealthy, rich bitch? Lucky bit. That was I should re-record, but lucky bit.
No, I love that. So, I mean, I grew up with a single mom, and we were pretty much always on welfare, and money was a struggle, but not in a way, I wouldn't say we were dirt poor, for example, but money wasn't really a thing for me because all of my friends were the same. I had a lot of friends who were in welfare. We all lived in government housing together, and it was very egalitarian, I suppose. But for me, though, one of the big eye-openers was when my mum got married to a rich man when I was about 11. And we moved from a very small house into literally like a mansion. And I had a pony, and he had one of those cars in the 80s with the pop-up headlight.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like all the things that I thought were just so freaking fancy. There was like those fancy swagged curtains of the 80s, and there was a moose head over the fireplace. Just all that
like
80s.
This is wealth, right?
This is wealth, right? But the thing is, with my mum's greatest value is freedom. And so anytime that she felt like she was too being restricted by this older man who very much used his wealth as to try and control her, we would just move out. And so we would move from the mansion into whatever tiny apartment she could find, and she would go back to jobs, waitressing jobs or working in nursing homes or whatever she could get, really. And so that was my first eye-opener, that money was this thing that people could control you with. And men had all the power, and men make all the money. And it gave me a massive desire to make my own money. And one positive thing that my stepdad taught me was he was an entrepreneur, and he owned a business that repaired fridges and washing machines, white goods. And so he would, the phones during the day would go to the office, but at night they would divert to our house, and I would answer the phone. And so he just taught me, that there was something outside of cleaning houses or waitressing or things that my mum had to do to get by. I was like, maybe I could start my own business. But I was really terrible at it. And the reason why I realized after it, all of my 20s I spent trying to start businesses. And I guess unconsciously I was trying to do it like men do it. And so I was going to these networking events where I'd be the only woman and the only younger woman as well. And I was going to big seminars where, again, it was mostly men, and definitely men speaking on stage. And so I didn't even realize I had all these internal stories and beliefs about my ability to make money and what that meant. But also I didn't really have any role models of how women do business, which I believe is so different, right? Like it's just a different conversation. And so I when I was about 30, I decided I wanted to be a life coach, because all I wanted to do my whole life really was read personal development books and tell people about them.
I love it.
Yeah, which I suspect is probably, most podcasters are like that too, right?
Oh yeah, that's me. I like my dream would be to just have like a little thing set up in my front yard, like a little stand, and people come by and like pay me $5 and I'll give you my opinion in 5 minutes. Like I'll tell you what to do.
Totally.
Right,
So
exactly.
so many of us have those skills from a young age, and I was like that at a young age too, but I didn't realize I had a bunch of money blocks around my ability to earn money. But I knew I wanted to help people, so I decided to become a life coach. And very quickly, I realized that I really loved talking to the people who were entrepreneurs rather than people who were in corporate life, because all of my corporate clients was like, maybe you should just quit your job and start a business,
Oh wow.
which is not the answer for everyone. Um, and then I realized that I preferred coaching women than men, so I niched down again, or niched, as you guys say in America. And and then I realized that all the lessons that I was personally learning about my money beliefs, I wanted to share that with other people. And so I thought I'll just run a little course, just sharing what I know and what I've learned about my own money stuff. And I had like maybe 15 people, I can't even remember, under 20 people that first one. And I was like, okay, that's it now. I've done that one. And and then people were like, why don't you run it again? Why don't you run it again? And so we've had over 6,000 people now do that program. And I still don't feel like I'm the expert and I know everything about money. I'm just sharing what I know and what's been helpful to me in uncovering my own money stories. And yeah, and that's how I really love to contribute, because I feel like yeah, we all just need to be honest and open and talking about money in like we talk about anything else as women.
Well, and that's that I don't think that we're talking about money as much. At least I wasn't either. And that's why when I read your book and first discovered your work, it really was this eye-opening experience for me, because I had just had the idea that my thoughts about money were facts, and that the ideas that I had, like it sounds that we were raised by some similar type of man, yet I came away with that, with the idea many women can't make money, I can't make money, money is hard for, and so then I just sort of pigeonholed myself down in that, and it took a while until I had some life experiences and then read your book too, to be like, relationship with money, what's she talking about? You know, and just having, I guess that's that first step really, is having that awareness that the thoughts that I was thinking about money were just that, they were thoughts and sentences in my head and things that I could challenge. And that is why your book so changed my life, but also just the idea is what I get so passionate about, is to help women see that sometimes these things that we're telling ourselves are facts are actually thoughts, and we can have some openness to see where they came from, and are they helping us, and if not, how we can shift them. I've heard you speak of money mindset, and what I find is fascinating is you say that there isn't a big difference in the facts. Like if someone can have the same money mindset and have 1,000 in their bank account or 100,000 in their bank account, could you speak a little more of that?
Yeah. So I think it's really easy to buy into the fantasy of perfection, our own perfection. And when we're finally perfect, or when we've finally lost that 10 pounds or 20 pounds, or when we're finally perfect, or we're organized enough, or we've got the perfect system, then somehow we'll be deserving of wealth, because we often think of like, oh, who would I be when I'm wealthy? And it's usually nothing like we are in reality. Uh, and so we're putting this barrier between ourselves, right? It's like, well, I'll definitely be thinner. I'll definitely be nicer. I'll definitely never shout at my kids.
I'll
And
be more organized. Yeah, it's all that.
yeah, the organizing one is a big, big one. I'll feel more credible. I'll never feel afraid. I will be brave, and, I'll put makeup on every day, and I'll be super fancy. And the truth is, like, you will be the same. And that's that's almost like the best thing you can do now is you could ask yourself, well, who do I want to be? And do I accept that I can be me and wealthy? Because that is going to uncover even more beliefs, right? It could be that you have a core belief that, you can't be a woman and be rich. And I think that's just so ingrained in us by social conditioning as well, that, you know, girls are taught that they're not good with numbers, and that they're not assertive enough, and we need to change ourselves to be successful and break the glass ceiling, and all of those things. There's a lot of conditioning around, well, it's better to share, and that's why a lot of women really struggle to ask for money in return for
Mm.
things, because we're supposed to be selfless and giving. So there's all of that, but then you might uncover a belief that, oh, if I was rich, I wouldn't be ethical or
Mm.
in integrity, or I wouldn't be a good mother to my kids. And it's all of those little things you've got to chip away at to say, well, no, I'll have the same values as I have now. I can be rich and environmentally conscious. I can be rich and in integrity. I can be rich and down to earth. I can be rich and be a good mom. I can be rich and normal. Like, there could be just little, like, one or two things that really trigger you. And so I don't have the mother one, right? I'm like one of those people. I'm like, I'm an okay mom and I'm totally fine with that. Right? Like, I don't feel like I have to be the best mom or anything. But my thing is being rich and down to earth.
Mm.
And that is the lesson that I had to learn when I've never made any money in my business. And then when I made my first 1,000, my first 10,000, my first 100,000, my first million, and I've made more than $10 million now online in the last 10 years. And so but I have to constantly challenge that in myself. And so now I'm like, oh, what beliefs do I have to change about myself to be a billionaire?
Mm.
Not because necessarily that's my goal. I have I'm holding that very lightly. That might be nice, but
Yeah,
it's
might
not.
be nice.
Why not?
Yeah.
But I know that that's where I need to challenge to uncover the nuances around my money beliefs, to maybe even just, help a few more people.
Mhm.
It will be the same for me. And I'd love to hear, Susie, as well, what you think your little trigger might be around that.
Mm. Well, I was just going to say one of the things, my book that I just love, and I will have in the show notes for everyone to get a copy of. One of the exercises I loved in there is when you had us just sort of write about our relationship to money, and sort of that would be a place for listeners to start to just say, like, what are your thoughts about money? Because I came up with so many and just misconceptions and thoughts about what money, that it was hard to make money, women can't succeed in business, women can't make money, money doesn't grow on trees. It was a very scarcity mindset idea. And then at the same time I had this unique side, the other side of the coin, so to say, was that I had the thought that I was good in math and I was a good money manager. So it was
Mm,
that came directly from my past too. My dad, I was the oldest of three daughters, but he always said he wanted a boy, and he kept saying he wanted a boy, and he kept saying he wanted a boy, and he did not enjoy his job, and he'd come home from work and complain about the women in his office and how they were just holding things up and slowing things down. And there was, I mean, he very clearly said women should not be in the office. They, I had that message. Yet then at the same time, he was in this position where he was very wealthy and he had three daughters. And
yeah.
so he's like, oh my goodness. So he did teach us how to invest in stocks and manage our money. And so on, one side gave me this lesson of money, women cannot succeed with money, but on the other side gave me this lesson of, like, you're a good financial steward, you can take care of your money. So my role
Mm,
when I keep growing in my business, it is coming up against that thought of women can succeed in business. I can succeed in business. I am succeeding in business, and sort of visualizing myself at that next level, like, wow, this is success. So yes, Susie, you can succeed. It's sort of that idea. Um, and it's interesting, like, I know when I'm reaching another level, when that thought comes up again, and sort of my own glass ceiling, like, oh, there it is again. Okay. Time to bust through that. But what are some
yeah.
of the most common myths or misconceptions that you see women having around money?
So if we take out the gender stuff, right, which is, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
huge. And we're all born into that water. Um, the biggest one I see when it relates to business is our relationship with working hard and
Mm,
our relationship with how we earn money. And I think people who are in business now, we have this very interesting kind of experience where we grew up in an analog world and we're usually making money in a digital world. So we grew up seeing our parents and our grandparents um, make money doing real stuff.
mm, yeah.
Like they had real jobs or they did things with their hands or they produced something real. And then I see this entire generation of women of all ages, but we're making money doing things that are incredibly leveraged.
Mm,
This podcast can go out to so many people.
mhm.
And, if you grew up consuming personal development stuff in the 80s and 90s, you had to get mailed a cassette tape, right? And then a CD. And
Listen with
um,
headphones, right, yeah.
yeah, it was harder to get your message out, even if you worked in a personal development kind of field, which was probably even seen as not a real job back then. So this relationship we all have with working hard can be different depending on how we grew up. So you might have seen your parents, make things, create things with their hands. They might have had a local business. They might have had a job that required them to work really long hours with their hands that exhausted them. You might have had a wealthy parent who worked really hard as well, really, 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 long hours. And so this is why it's interesting that there's not really like a direct correlation with how much money you had as a kid and how many money blocks you have, because we can all get bad money beliefs from every situation. But this belief that you have to work really hard to make money, when that translates into business now for women, I see people, I've done this myself, so I'm talking about myself too, reinvent the wheel,
Mm,
try and do everything ourselves, refuse to delegate, ignore easy wins, ignore obvious topics that we should be
mm,
teaching, or because we discount it, right? Oh, that's too easy. Everyone knows how to do that. Everyone can do that. And so it's almost like we've all got our own barriers anyway, right? But we put additional barriers in there because we live in this world that still rewards hard work, busy work, money doesn't grow on trees, all of those messages. And so I honestly see we often make things way harder for ourselves than they need to
yeah, well,
be.
can I just add in there that not charging for our worth, like not charging our work, for so, you're talking about women and whatever they're, I've seen women with this we're recording in the time of the quarantine for COVID. It's still going on. And it is, I've seen women making money by putting out like how to make a fancy meal with your kids running around and then saying, oh, I'll give it to you for free, versus like, this is a value, you need to charge for it, or whatever it is, let me help you homeschool your kids. And these are, and so not charging the value for the value that we are giving. And that is another area that's been helpful for me to look and see that money is a value. It is, you give a service, you get a service. And it's that piece that I was not always comfortable doing.
Absolutely. And, to add to that Corona discussion, there are a lot of businesses whose business model means that they cannot operate right now. And so if you have a business that can operate within this world that we're in, like, don't add to the halting of the economy. It's totally okay to be open for business right now. And don't prejudge what you offer as something that's frivolous or not needed right now, because if I look back at the last 2 months, I suppose, some of the things I've bought um have got nothing to do with, like, they're not survival things.
Yeah, yeah,
They're like, oh, I need this cookbook because it makes me feel good.
that's my piece of life or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it just gives you
I've bought
your day. Yeah. Whoops.
Definitely, I've bought candles, I've bought new skincare and new makeup because I'm on Zoom all the time. I've bought, I've bought clothes,
Yeah.
I've bought uh training videos, I've bought I've done new websites because, hey, why not? Perfect time. I've hired people to help me create new resources in my business. So not only my business stuff, but things, for well-being. I think there are a lot of people who are just like, oh, I need to self-soothe right now. What can I buy that also gives me pleasure, not just like,
Right.
solves a problem. At the start of Corona too, when diapers were a little bit scarce at the grocery store, I was thinking, man, if you've got a business helping people to toilet train a toddler in a weekend, like you should be promoting this right now.
You would be making some money. Great time. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And so I love for people listening, whether they own a business or not, but for them to just have some openness to lean in and discover what their thoughts are on money and the relationship with money. You speak of sort of looking at your past to see where these things come from. And I guess how might that influence you? Like how might seeing your mom hide her purchases influence you? Or
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's one of the first things that we get people to do is to do an inventory of all their money memories. And what I find fascinating is that some people who have been in my course for 8 years are discovering either new memories that they didn't remember before, or new filters or nuances to old memories and how that's impacting them today. So it's really fun to write it all down, but to look for themes, and look for themes, and then take that one layer deeper and say to yourself, well, how could this be impacting how I run, my life and my business? So a really good example is, if you've been put into the role of like the baby in your family, that could be impacting how you deal with like grown up stuff in your life and business, like doing your taxes or your accounting or paying bills. It could be, because you're playing that role. You're stuck in that role of, well, I'm the baby and I don't have to do grown up things,
ah,
you know.
okay. And
So that could be one example.
that's so
Um,
interesting. Someone else will do
if
it for
you're
me, or
absolutely the flip side of that, I find a lot of firstborn women feel like they're responsible for everybody in
mm,
their life. And, well, I have to bail out other people. I have to be financially responsible for other people. And that could be showing up in your clients and how you deal with your family, even about how you treat your kids, and I noticed that in myself, that I treat my firstborn, I say to her, hey, you're the leader. You're the kid boss.
mm,
If you do something naughty, the other kids will follow you. And then I find that when the younger kids are at daycare, she kind of reverts a little bit because she wants to be the baby sometimes and not have to,
yeah,
and I see that, like, I feel responsible for my younger siblings. Like, I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders sometimes. And so we just have to just see what our past has taught us and just break the cycle. And I honestly think awareness is like 80% of that, right? Because then
mm,
you go, oh, that's not the world. That's just something that I've been taught, or that's our unofficial family motto that I'm
mm,
passing on, or I'm living as if that's true. And one really useful thing I think that we can do is see, what do we, we couldn't control what we grew up hearing, but we can control that now. So we can control what is in our social media feeds. We
mm,
can control like what messages we listen to when we're driving in our car. Are you listening to the news all the time, or are you listening to positive podcasts of examples of women who are doing what you want to do? And this, I think it's really important, especially like in the time that we're in right now, that we don't just follow people who look and sound like us.
mm.
Or on the flip side of that, often if you have never seen an example of someone who looks like you, it is going to be hard to change your own self-perception. So seek out, people who have your skin color or your similar situation or a similar background, so you can go, oh well, she can do it, maybe I can do it as well. So we can control totally what we filter in social media and what we listen to. So we can all do that today, right? Start following some hashtags, purposefully look out for leaders to challenge your perceptions, but also strengthen your beliefs that it's possible for you as well.
Right. Well, I want to return back where you were talking about looking through your past and that awareness is 80% of it. And I just want to say, coupled with like a kind of compassion or forgiveness um, for yourself and for your family, because you don't know what you don't know. So they don't, they're doing the best they can. And when we can look at it from a place of like, okay, so that's what they did. And now how do I move forward? That's great. And then to your point of looking for other, sort of widening our circles, that is so crucial, because for me, I grew up in my little neighborhood and my dad's stories were rung true. Looking around my neighbor, there were no women in business. All the men were it was the men making the money and the women at home, um, not getting paid for their work. And when I started to expand my circle a bit, that really was helpful, and looking to see, powerful, wealthy women like Oprah is the one that comes to mind for me. I'm like, oh, hello, what a wonderful example of a woman running a business who really knocks it out of the park. And so thank you for bringing that up, and the importance of looking at the messages we're getting and what are we feeding our brain.
Oh, absolutely. I was reflecting actually on Oprah today because her feed at the moment is a lot of her garden,
Mm.
and she showed this there was this video of this cabbage, and this cabbage was like this big.
Oh my gosh.
And and like 10 years ago, I think if you googled wealthy women, the stock images particularly were all of and I remember doing this, and it was a lot of white skinny women drinking champagne on a private
Oh my
uh
goodness.
plane, a private
Yeah.
plane. And I remember
Oh
thinking, but
wow.
I don't want, like, I'm allergic to champagne, so that's for me is never a symbol of wealth. But I actually googled wealthy women today, and I noticed there was a lot more diversity in there. But
Oh.
also, it's not about like the shoulder pads of the 80s and things like that. I think a lot of people now, we look at Oprah in her garden and we go, that's wealth. Like, the
Mm.
happiness in her skin and like her leadership and everything is so inspiring. And but we can I think one of the biggest problems is that maybe a lot of us didn't have any role models that weren't celebrities as well. And so when you can start to follow like ordinary women too who are talking about money, that's useful too, right? Because we can't all be Oprah, and Oprah, she's a billionaire. There's not that many female billionaires, but we can follow other women who are having discussions about money openly and talking about their businesses and showing success at all levels.
I love that. And that also then gives you the opportunity to really challenge our mindsets on money and what women are like. And you do have a whole section in the book on that, that wealthy women are bitches, or wealthy women, or, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, actually, as you said at the beginning, money doesn't make you something different. Like it makes you more of who you are. So if I'm already a generous, giving person, money is going to make me more of that. And I have a greater ability to spread that generosity out to the world. And that was a really helpful point that you made. I can't remember the other personality types that you had in there, but they were in just the ideas that we have of wealthy women that are negative or pushy, or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, if you're
You
already,
know that
you'll probably be pushier, but that's on you. It's okay.
I think the other side of that is the selfless philanthropist.
Mm.
And that is a great thing to aspire to, but it also is that perfectionism, right? Of like, oh, I can be the rich bitch, or I can be like Mother Teresa,
Mhm.
or I can be I don't know, just someone completely selfless and good to the core. And I remember thinking, like, I'm not that nice. Like my first business was called Lucky Bitch, and like there's a grain of truth in there. Like, I can be a bit of a bitch. And so there has to be places for like all of those things, right? You might be rich and lazy, you might be rich, and there's room for all of those things, not just the black and white stereotypes.
Well, yeah, and that like little pigeonhole of the view that like the white women on the plane with champagne who were skinny. And it's like, I don't want that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you very much. So what are you excited or passionate about right now? Are you working on anything these days?
I am. So, so about a year and a half ago, I bought a holiday house, and that was part of my like, what would a wealthy woman do? Like a wealthy woman has a holiday house,
Okay.
and I was inspired by Martha Stewart actually a lot because I was like, oh my God, she has, like she has a holiday house and she has a garden, and I didn't actually think it wasn't on my radar to buy, but I just started reading magazines and books of because I found it very soothing of like it reminded me of my grandma, and it was just really soothing looking at like those pictures of cottages and porches and gardening. And so I was like, oh, maybe one day in the future I could have that. But of course, when you start planting seeds, the universe is like, well, why don't you go and look at one, right? And so I just started going to open houses of country cottages, kind of within about an hour and a half of where I live at the beach. And I found this lovely place, and it just happened to be attached to a hobby farm that grows roses. And so that has been my project um, pretty much for the last 6 months, because for the first year we put a tenant in there and didn't think about it too much because we're also building this house that I live in right now
Okay.
on the beach. So that was challenging. Another perception that was challenging. You can't have both, right? Because I was like, but I already have this dream house. Like, who am I to have a dream house by the beach and I can see the ocean right there, and a cottage? That is too much, Denise. Like that is extravagant. Um, but the last 6 months, I've been renovating it. I have been finding people to partner with who like to grow things because I'm a starter. I'm not a completer finisher. Like I think it's a good idea, and I like just turning up and like pulling out a weed every now and again. But like I do not
Cutting
have
the
that. So I was
roses,
like,
putting them on your table.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. I love that part of it. And so we find people who want to run a business at the farm. So at the moment we've got um, growers, so they grow like kale and
Oh,
carrots and strawberries. And
and
part
have
of their agreement is that they
cabbage.
have to give me some. Yeah, part of their agreement is that they give me some produce. So I'm like, this comes from my farm. I'm just like Oprah.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
Yes, and we have beehives on the property from a local entrepreneur who makes
Wow.
candles and wraps, and so I get some honey from that without having to do
Gosh.
anything. And then I'm looking for other businesses around that. So we've renovated a space that used to be a cafe there, so I'm going to bring a cafe so I can get like coffee and pastries. We're creating a florist so then someone can take over the roses. We're building like a little film studio. So that takes up a lot of my time and energy. But what's really fun about that, because I have my business, helping people with their money mindset. But for the last couple of years, I hadn't been challenged on my money mindset
Mm.
in the same way. And so now I have another business where I'm like, oh my God, I have to charge people for flowers that grow in the ground for free. Like it's
Yeah.
given me another nuance to remind me of what my clients are going through in the real world, right? Because it can sometimes be easy to be the teacher and be like,
Come
you
on.
should do this.
Yeah. Oh, I just love that. And what I'm also hearing, and I want to point out to the listeners, is just the ability that when we make more money, the money money is meant to be spread, and it's like a flow of resources. And here she is making more money buying this farm where there didn't used to be a cafe and a rose store and and she's making them and now spreading all that out to not only the businesses that you'll be able to support, but also the people in the community that are getting joy from your flowers and your honey and I love it. So thank you very much. I know
Yeah.
all links to the show, including your books and your money boot camp. A link to learn more about Denise will be at www.smbwell.com/98. You're at 98. And this show is called the Love Your Life Show. Is there anything that you do every day or every week? Do you have routines that set you up to live a life that you love?
You know why I love this question? Because um I think again, people think, oh, there must be like the perfect routine and Denise must be perfect. Like I've got three little kids My youngest, she turns 2 next month. And so my morning routine is an absolute like chaos.
Sure.
And, I always thought of myself, oh, when I'm wealthy, I'm going to be like waking up near the beach. I'm going to meditate on my
Popping.
yoga platform. And I'm going to swim in the ocean. And I'm going to have like fresh fruit on the patio. And I do have pockets of that. But also, I'm like super imperfect and lazy, and my life is a bit chaotic with the kids. But that is true. That is true. But one thing I do every day is I do tapping. I do EFT.
Yeah.
And yeah, for those of you who don't know tapping, it's so easy. You can just go to YouTube, and there's people who can teach you how to do it. And I don't always remember to do it for myself, but I do it as part of my bedtime routine with my kids. And so that gives me the accountability to make sure I've done at least one round of telling myself, which is part of tapping, I deeply and completely love and accept myself, because, I make mistakes all the time. I don't do things perfectly. And, I if I forget to do that, a lot of those feelings build up of like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not, and it just is a reminder, like, it's okay. I'm a human. I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So that's a practice that I try and do every day.
That's huge. Like I mean, I had 3 young children in the house too, and I still don't meditate every morning. And they, the youngest is now 16. So, but the tapping and the reminder to yourself, I will definitely put a link in there to tapping, because listeners, you're basically, I don't know the exact, but you're tapping on your meridian points, like the same things that acupuncture use, and it has helped me with anxiety at times. I do not have a regular practice, but I know when things get really crazy, I get into it. And so maybe just hearing about it from you is a sign for me that I can get back into it, just because it is a wonderful add-on to our routines and our lives. Is there anything, because I know money mindset, as with anything, is not a one and done. Like, okay, check this off.
Oh no.
Do you have like certain times of the month or certain times of the week, or that you sort of say money mantras, or look into money mindset, or have anything around
Yeah,
that?
so what I do, because I'm a lazy person, and I totally admit that I don't have any bad connotations around it. I like to automate things like that as much as possible. So, making the EFT part of the bedtime routine, like that's in the process. But I don't always remember to like journal and stuff like that. So I have calendar pop-ups that just
Mm,
pop up with one of my goals or a mantra. So I see it and I go, oh, that's right. I have to
right.
remember that. My screensaver on my phone has some of my goals. My screensaver on my computer. You can even set screensavers now on your smart TVs. Like you can
Oh,
choose what shows up when that goes to screensaver. I have little reminders. I'm wearing a coin necklace today. So just these little things you can do.
yes.
We call them positive anchors in Money Boot Camp, but there's, what automatically comes on when you get in your car, like what podcasts are you listening to that just come on automatically? What images have you got around your house? It could be affirmation jewelry. You can get bracelets now with mantras on them and things like that. So I don't like to leave things to chance, because I know myself that without those things, I could slip into old,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
that's a
old
great.
thought patterns.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I love. I definitely. I know that you have said before, like what you measure, you can grow, and so I put. There's an app called Mint that tracks all your finances together. So I have that on the home screen of my phone, and just each day I'll look at that and say thank you, money. Like just having a different, way, like thank you for being there and thank you for the. But it's front and center so that it becomes a daily practice, and those, all the reminders. I have a ring actually that says believe on it, which is my word of the year. But just I definitely, yeah, I appreciate that. And phone reminders, all that stuff, warriors. So let's go at it.
It
Well,
all it all it all adds up, and you might think one little thing isn't enough, but all of those compound together to crowd out some of the negativity. And again, I think it's a good parting message, is that you don't have to be 100% positive, but you just have to tip the balance a little bit more than the negative, right? And some days it's like this much more.
Like, oh,
And some days it's a lot more, but all of those things add up to strengthen your belief. Like, believe is such a perfect one. I remember I had one as well that had that, and it really helped me for a long time. But, when those opportunities come up, you've built that belief, and so you're more inclined to take those opportunities and you're more inclined to take action. And a lot of those things you can automate. You don't have to think about, every day. You don't have to meditate 24 hours a day and focus on abundance if you put all of those little things in place.
yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Denise, so much. We will all go out there and abundantly live lives that we love. Thank you.